Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, doing good. Just close the door.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Uh,
Yes.
let's go ahead and get started. Uh,
Yes.
hey everybody, this is Keisha Lacey from the Random Horror Show, and we have a special guest. This is our first Random Horror Chat. And of course, here at the Random Horror Show, we film, commentate, being silly and going off tangents, but we come to the point with horror, science fiction, fantasy, and cult classics and the obscure, movies, television, and books. And I want everybody to give a round of applause and welcome our guest. And go ahead, you take the floor right now.
Well, thank you. I can hear the applause ringing me in as we speak. So I am Ilis Helmersson, the editor-in-chief for SwedishNerd.com, and I run the Instagram account as Swedish Horror Nerd, the TikTok account as Swedish Horror Nerd, and the YouTube channel as Swedish Horror Nerd. Um, and I'm here today to talk some horror with Keisha here.
Yes, yes, I'm loving this. I'm really, really loving this. I know we're gonna have like a really great time with this, and we love some horror. I'm doing a little. We love
Yeah,
us some horror.
yeah.
Oh gosh.
I
Oh man.
currently I currently have a new TikTok out right now. It's not written. It's not made by me. It's made solely made by a friend of mine out in Manchester, Jack Barry. So definitely check that out on my TikTok account, Swedish Horror Nerd. Usually I write them and he makes them, but now at this moment he wrote them as well.
That's cool. Yeah, I do follow you on TikTok. I do. I do follow you on there. And Jack actually follows me now on Instagram. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I just came to a realization one day that my connection network is starting to follow themselves. Everybody's following everybody, kind of
And
trying.
uh
And that was my goal, to try to connect the horror community just a tad more.
that's the same way how I feel too. Just connecting with the horror community. And you know what? It's paying off. It really is. It's paying off. And you know, even like with me and you, how we connected, which that was like really, really interesting, is because we joined like the horror hangout with First Class Horror, ran by Aaron.
Yeah,
And we're on YouTube and we're typing and they're going on about like whatever movie they're talking about. And you came on, didn't even know you from Adam, but I was like, oh, a Swedish horror nerd, cool, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
then when the whole conversation starts to rolling, and I'm reading, and I was like, this guy is really funny. This guy knows his horror, and that caught my eye about you, is that you really do know your horror, even down to producers, the stories, the backstories, directors. I mean, you really impressed me with all of that. You really did. You made a really huge impression on me.
well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and I always tell you like you're the coolest.
Thank you. No,
Oh,
I'm just a giant bookworm that loves to read, and as long as I'm interested in something, I remember it very easily. So it's that's how I have become some kind of encyclopedia, I think. But actually, my first encounter with horror was, well, I did watch some horror movies like pre this
hmm.
event, but my first like real time I felt an impression on horror was when I was reading uh, a fact book about horror movies and reading up on interviews and all that. That was my gateway drug to horror when I was 12. just sitting and reading. It was at a local library. I just came across this book about horror movies and mainly 70s and 80s slashers, but they
Hmm.
talked about all kinds of stuff, but mainly that. And it just interested me so deeply, this 12-year-old child reading about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Um, and there's a quote from And Then There Were None from 2015 that I like to use to summarize my feelings in horror. Where
Hmm.
others were horrified, I was fascinated.
I need to. I need to like really read up. I used to be like an avid. I mean, I still read, and like you, um, my aunt, she was really huge into horror, and she was older than me. She was more like a kid sister, but she,
Mm,
I had my memories of her. We going to the video store and picking out horror movies. It was never nothing romantic or comedy or anything. It was just nothing but straight horror, and that was around in the 80s. My first horror movie that I watched was Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 version. And I live right up the road from a cemetery. So at
oh,
5 years old, yeah, at 5 years old, I'm having these bad dreams of the dead people like from the cemetery coming out of their graves and coming to attack us. And it would have like, it kind of backed us off. I kind of backed off a little bit from it, at 5. But really, what really got me into it is I had a traumatic experience at 6 of where my brother and I were in Europe. We're like 13 months apart. And that's when Nightmare on Elm Street came out. Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven. It was really huge. And I read the how Wes Craven started up the character of Freddy Krueger because he's seen this guy. He was like old and cragged, and scared him
yeah,
around
around like that.
yeah, scared him around 6 or 7 years old. And my brother and I, we shared a bed, and my mom is telling us, "Y'all go to sleep." We had school in the morning, and we were talking, just being kids, and out from the darkness emerged this guy. He had a hat on. And so the lighting from the window, there was this tall light post that shined through the window. And so we seen that shadow of that hat and this guy coming out of the closet. And we froze. I mean, we were literally petrified. And we were just scared to death that like this guy could like kill us. We were that 6 and 5 years old, and the guy jumped out the window. And at that time, when my mom came in and flicked the light, she seen the guy run out the window, scared the crap out of her, and called the cops. And it was from the hype of like Freddy Krueger, that was really big, Nightmare on Elm Street. And then that incident, it was a robbery, and that scared the shit out of me. And I watch movies like that to deal with the trauma of something that I experienced, at 6 years old. The boogeyman is like, wow, the boogeyman just came off the screen and in
Yeah.
our closet. It was really horrible, but I had a very rough childhood. I started reading a lot of Stephen King books, a lot of D.N.R. Kuntz books, a lot of science fiction and horror books, especially around in middle school, and that would made me cope with like bullying, um, just myriad of things of just going, throughout my childhood of what I dealt with. And that was like my connection with horror is because of that incident that happened to me at 6.
Yeah, art is usually it's a lot of times used to progress drama and like try to make you feel better. It's very useful at that, and it's definitely, I think horror is a great genre for channeling your demons, for kind of doing a personal exorcism on yourself, because
Exactly.
it's darkness. You this horrifying event when you're 6 years old, it left a darkness in you, and you need to connect with another darkness to let that darkness out. A
Right.
psychological exorcism, I think, would be a good description.
And it's a good description. And of course that had me in my gothic years, like, oh, she's so goth. She hung out at the I used to study at the cemetery. The cemetery that I was afraid of at 5 years old, that the zombies are gonna come and eat us. I spent a lot of time at the cemetery, and I didn't have that many friends, but it was solace for me to, like you said, it was a psychological connection to that, to not, with the darkness of just not being afraid, of just really just facing your fears. And I mean, cemetery, I still like cemeteries. I still visit the cemetery.
Yeah,
Oh, not as much as I used to, but yeah, like I don't understand why, people like, oh, cemeteries are so scary and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, they're not. The people are asleep, they're dead. And, what can you do?
yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah.
yeah, let's like have you seen the Scream 6 trailer? I mean, have you like we talked about Scream, and also I wanted to touch on Scream 5. What you think about like the Scream 6, that's coming up next year? How do you feel about that?
I I am not I am not I'm not that big into 90s horror. I've seen the
Mhm.
original Scream. I seen the second one. Yeah, I've seen the second one, but I'm not terribly big into the Scream franchise. My big franchise is Friday the 13th, to a certain extent, Halloween, and definitely my biggest franchise that is kind of a slasher is Alien. So it's like those are my golden boys in the horror genre. Um, so uh, I'm not. I don't have a huge opinion on it. I definitely have to. I definitely have to sit down and watch Scream 5.
Mhm.
Solely because of Ready or Not. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed Ready or Not from 2018, which was the director duo's previous feature before they made Scream 5. Um, so that definitely has me attracted to that movie. Uh, I don't know, the 90s genre. My problems with 90s slashers is how there is the cinematography. It's too light. It's too, I don't know. It doesn't, for me. Horror movies have to have a special atmosphere. I'm very picky about that. Where like they have to look a certain way in order to. I want that feeling of that look. And the
Right.
problems with the 90s one, as I said, too brightly lit. It's the worst case scenario is definitely Halloween H2O from 1998. I mean, it
Mhm.
looks like Dawson's Creek, Michael's Creek. It's it's bad. I don't want it to look like that.
I was never a big Dawson's Creek fan. I just didn't get the whole craze of the teenage, young adult. I mean, and I was around that time of when Scream, the first Scream came out.
Yeah,
And I like Wes Craven, what he did. He did reinvent that horror of, like what you say, like the lighting, and you're particular about the lighting. Like you said, you want your horror movies to have like a certain atmosphere and lighting with it, and that is very important. Same with the music, just in and everything. Um, it did have like that feel of, like you said, Dawson's Creek, and of course the guy who created the characters for Dawson's Creek, he curated the characters for Scream also. So you are right. It
Interesting.
does have like that teenager, romance, like bullshit drama, like soap opera feel to it. But I thought like when I first saw Scream, and I was a little bit, sketch on it because I'm just like, I mean, yes, West Craven. I guess I take a stab at it, pun intended. And I liked it because it was different. Yes, you are right. The lighting um is bright, and I feel like in a psychological sense, um anything can take place in the light as well as in the dark. And I
True.
believe that what he was, the lighting that he was playing with, the brightness of it, is that he was playing with that to let the audience know, like, look, you think everything goes bump in the night is scary, but check this shit out. Shit happens in the light too. It was, and I got that, but Scream 5, it was a big surprise. I didn't care for Scream 4. I thought this whole franchise just fell off. I believe Scream 4 was the last movie that Wes Craven directed before he passed away.
Yes.
And it did. It just fell off right there. I didn't care for it. I believe Hayden Panettiere, she played on the show years ago before the writer's strike called Heroes, and is the little slogan like to save the world you got to save the cheerleader. She was the cheerleader. She's played the cheerleader on that show, and it was a good show. When the writer's strike happened, and then they all went back to work, what was said and done, the show just fell off. It
Yeah.
wasn't exciting anymore. I really, I was like, oh, that's Hayden Panettiere. She plays the cheerleader.
Mm.
She did okay in that role, but I just didn't even like care for her character. I mean, yeah, Nev Campbell, who plays Sydney, she was there, but it was just like, like it's another movie. Let me go play Sydney. But Scream 5 or Scream 2022, I like it that they brought the legacy characters back. Um, Sydney, I despise this trope of, you know, the last girl standing always like in horror movies. I hate that last girl standing. I despise the shit out of that. What was different about Sydney Prescott is that she wasn't the last girl standing. She was actually, she's a survivor, and that was the difference of like how you can compare Lori from Halloween to like Sydney Prescott. But even though like Lori, played by Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, actually started that. She didn't know she started it, but she started that last girl standing thing. I think like both of them, both the characters are very strong. They're vulnerable, and you see everything what they go through, like especially dealing with murder and somebody's coming after you.
Mm.
The psychological, the trauma, the violence with it. And it's not more of like, well, she's alive because she wants to live. It's more of like she want to survive because she ain't trying to deal with this shit anymore.
Yeah.
And but I feel like this Scream 6 that's coming out next year. Um, I think it's like a torch that's passed on from the legacy characters to like the new
Mm.
generational of horror audience to like, to keep the franchise going. I like the freshness what they did with Scream 5. I thought that was going to be stupid, but it worked itself out. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm game. And usually, if I watch a horror movie
Mm.
and I'm not screaming at the characters, and I'm not saying get your ass up, get the fuck up, come on, if I'm not doing that, then that's an epic fail for me. I
True.
gotta, I mean, you have to be really, really into it because if you're not, it just, you just like meh like that. Um, since you like mentioned uh
Yeah.
Friday 13th and everything, um I like Jason, and I think like maybe like after was it like Friday 13th, New Blood.
Yeah,
That's where the girl, she had the telekinesis powers, and
yeah.
yeah. I like that one. I like all of those up to six. And then it just kind of just like it just fell off. And I know when they came out with Jason X, and I like the other one, the one with Freddy and Jason, and they had like this big
Yes.
standoff.
Freddy
I
versus Jason for
Yeah,
2003.
Freddy versus Jason. I really like that one right there. How do you feel about like the whole Camp Crystal, like the Jason Voorhees character? I mean, he's a fascinating character. He really is.
I mean, he started out very much as a ripoff because Sean S. Cunningham, he doesn't care about anything than money, and he's been very open about it. Like, he didn't, like, he openly says in an interview that I saw Halloween 1978 in the theater.
Mhm.
Right after, I gave my either co-writer or co-producer a call and said, "This is it. This is our cash cow."
Mhm.
And um, and so it definitely birthed from a very stale money only perspective where they didn't have any idea for the character, and the lore doesn't make sense. What is interesting about the Friday the 13th franchise
Mhm.
is the 80s movies. They don't make sense. They are very weak in plot. They're very very stale. They have amazing kills. Like, they always had amazing special makeup effects artists working on each movie. Tom Savini, Stan Winston,
Mhm.
John Carbickler,
Mhm.
real effects, all of these, Brian Wade, all of these amazing special makeup effects artists. Uh, so like the kills are amazing,
Mhm.
and all that, but it's like the story, the character, the acting, everything just falls apart. They have some great atmosphere shots, especially in part four,
Mhm.
because Joseph Zito, he knew how to put up a shot after all. But what is interesting about the Friday the 13th ones is, I think if it wasn't for that stupid legal battle, like Sean S.
Mhm.
Cunningham, seriously, my guy, or I don't know the details. He might have some right in the matter. I don't know, but anyway, what what is interesting about the Friday the 13th franchise is the interesting ideas in the Friday the 13th franchise. They didn't pop up during its golden age during the 80s because like the concept was very much the same. Kill
Mhm.
sex, kill sex, kill sex, killer gets killed. Like, that's the idea. Now interesting ideas are starting to pop up, and there's some really interesting unmade scripts out there where they really take a deep dive, and they started that in a way in Friday the 13th part 6, because that's when the idea of Elias popped up, his father, and there
Mhm.
are comic books about it. It's also very interesting. So after a while, interesting ideas popped up, but they've never really explored those ideas in the movies, and I think that's very sad because there was a scene in the script of Friday the 13th Part 6 from
Mhm.
1986, which, by the way, was shot in the same town in Georgia where they shot Halloween 2,
Mhm.
Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, that is.
Mhm.
But anyway, there was a scene where Elias went to visit his son's grave. And then in one of the scripts in Freddy vs. Jason, where Kane Hodder was still intended as Jason Voorhees before they switched him out because he wasn't tall enough, according to the director or producer or both,
Mhm.
um, where he was supposed to play Elijah's.
Mhm.
So there is a lot of unmade potential with that character, but it is an interesting character, and yeah, I think you can do a lot of with him.
You raised so many good points. Um, with how 80s horror was. Oh, gosh, especially with the characters. The characters were flat, two-dimensional, or not even no kind of dimension whatsoever. Like flat as this copy paper that I'm looking at from my
Yeah.
copy machine. And it was right, like sex, kill, sex, kill, sex, kill. It's like, okay, uh, I get the whole, yeah, that part right there, but it just became so boring. It was just a free for all for like any horror movie because you had like you said, it was like that cash cow and all of that, and that's the reason why they start churning them out. You had Sleepaway Camp. You had what's it's another slasher film with like Sorority House Massacre. You had just a crap load of like these same uh, I call it just box made, like pudding made box, you
Yeah.
just pour milk, whip it up, there you go, you have pudding. It was like these movies back in the 80s,
Mm.
it was just just cookie cutter. It was really cookie cutter movies.
Yeah.
And and it was like when the whole, like, I remember at 10 when RoboCop came out, and it's a horror. Like, RoboCop is horror. It's a Frankenstein movie, and
Yeah.
it was sentimental, and it won my heart because I would watch RoboCop every weekend that I ever get a chance. Yes, it was rated R and stuff like that, but I would just watch it all the time because I just understood. I was like, dang, I guess all these books that I read, I just understand some subject matter a little bit deeply. But it was just the subject matter of it, and just you felt that you felt it when Murphy lost
Yeah.
everything. And then he just like became like a machine for OCP, but people really didn't realize that like he still had a soul. He still felt things. He was owned by OCP as just property. It was just he was like at these struggles because he was like, am I man or I'm machine? And I got that. And of course,
Yeah.
me just being highly sensitive as a Pisces, and I cried. I just cried. I was like, I've
Yeah.
never cried at a movie like this at 10 of what, just caught me in my heartstrings like that. I mean, I didn't understand about adult things, but it was
Yeah.
just the story that got me, and I loved it. And that was like what I'm, going back to the point is that it was just cookie cutter. It just didn't have no flavor with it.
No.
But you are definitely right with the practical effects and the special effects.
Yeah. It was the
They
golden
were
age.
Yeah, they were so awesome. And that's what I was like, dang. Tom Savini is like the king of it. And
Yeah.
a lot of great horror, special effects guys too. And you just couldn't take your eyes off. And I believe that's what saved a lot of those movies, that for people just to stomach through was the special effects.
Yeah, definitely. And what is interesting about Tom Savini is Friday the 13th Part 4
Mhm.
was actually that was his first Hollywood movie. All other work he had done either in Jacksonville, Florida,
Mhm.
or mainly in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where his shop was stationed and where he lived.
Right.
And he was scared of coming down to Hollywood because, and this is connected to the slash movies because this is how they were viewed very much.
Mhm.
Friday the 13th very interesting because like people only saw him as the gore guy. All the other make a lot of no, I think all makeup artists in Hollywood to some extent or completely look down on Tom Savini. He wasn't seen as a real artist. He was seen as a gore splatter. And Paramount originally hired Greg Canham, which made
Mhm.
it, which he was a Rick Baker apprentice,
Oh,
freshly off
okay.
Rick Baker's projects. Like, if you
Yeah.
were a Rick Baker apprentice, or a Stan Winston apprentice, or a Berman apprentice, or a Chambers apprentice, like, you were a god. You were the golden child that
Mm.
nobody could touch. It was kind of how it was viewed. I could be wrong to some extent, but it was kind of like that. So he hired all of these. Alec Gillis talks about it in an interview with Stan Winston School, where Greg Canham hired all of these guys, young guys that were like my age, like 20, 21, and Kevin Jaeger, Alec Gillis, um, now lost, but a bunch of young up and comers that are now like Oscar nominated people with 40 years experience in the business, or Oscar
Mhm.
winners. And uh, and then Joseph Zito said, "No, I don't." He said to Paramount, "No, I don't want Greg Canham. I want Tom Savini, because he had worked with Tom Savini on The Prowler from 1981, and he wanted familiar people to work with. He didn't want a new guy because
Yeah.
he knew that Tom Savini could do the work." So, for some bizarre reason, the studio listened to Joseph Zito. Could be the fact that yes, they were coming out of the 70s, where um, the studios didn't have a lot of leg up on artistic creators, because they
Mm.
were in a financial crisis in the 70s. So this was 1983. So I think they were like still recovering. So they
Mm.
actually could listen to the artists and not say, no, you're having Greg Canham. So, and the young guys that were hired were like, when he got the news that Greg Canham was now fired and instead Tom Savini is brought in, they were very disappointed. And thankfully, after a while, when they started to know Savini, they really enjoyed his work and working with him. It was a really nice guy. Uh, but like, this plays into the bigger view of the Friday the 13th movies. Paramount was very. They didn't like having the Friday the 13th franchise. It was not something they liked to have. They saw it as very a degrading thing.
Mhm.
The problem was it was cheap to make, and
Mhm.
it made a lot of money. So they were in a predicament. We're like, okay, so you're like this classy studio with this sleazy franchise, and what do we do? So they wanted to kill off Jason, but it
Mhm.
made so much money they couldn't. It just kept going, and eventually they sold off Jason in 1990. But like, for the big companies, like the main slashers that were made during the 80s, and you have two different eras there. You have the golden age of slashers,
Mhm.
starting in October of 1978 with Michael Myers' Halloween, and after that, over 100 of these slasher movies were made throughout that period, up till the summer of 1984, when it ended with Friday the 13th Part 4 and Nightmare on Elm Street. And Nightmare on Elm Street was not, it was an end, but it was also a beginning,
Mhm.
where it it kind of started to bring in a new era of slasher movies, where the movies could get weird, and you see that in Friday the 13th Part 6, um, where they got weird with that movie. He's a zombie now. It's wacky. It's not as like the movies didn't after. The Friday the 13th is interesting because you can kind of see a timeline here
Mhm.
of how slasher movies were viewed and how they were used. Like, when you get into the 90s with Friday the 13th, you can't really use it that way, but with the remake, you can use it.
Mhm.
So you have the Golden Age, 80 to 84, where like they were just spitting out this thing. Like, you get a slash movie, you get a slash movie, you get a slash movie. All of these movies were made by sleazy, low budget corporations that, like, they didn't care about anything but money. And it's a lot of these have very sleazy um, sad stories, and it's no surprise that from this world was where the Weinsteins were birthed. They came from this
Yeah.
world,
Ugh.
and so. But then '84, after Nightmare on Elm Street, and we're like people were just getting tired of these cookie cutters movies. Yeah, like some of them, like Friday the 13th Part 4, they were making money, but
Mhm.
it's very stale at this point. Like people have seen it 100 times, literally. And um, so time to get weird, time to have a telepathic girl, and time to have a zombie Jason, time to have a Jason on a boat in Vancouver, New York City, and all of that stuff. And then in the 90s, 93, they got even weirder when they were bought up by New Line Cinema, and they tried some weird spirit gulag because the slasher movie era was dead. Nobody wanted to see slasher movies, and that was the case until 96. And I would definitely say that Freddy vs. Jason is the last of what I call the Dawson's Creek slashers from 96 to 2003. Brightly lit, everyone is too pretty, it's all fluffy, it all looks like a cotton candy movie that just disappears in your mouth or in your mind. And then you have the remake in 2009, and that is very much like now we are in Michael Bay territory. Now it's more gritty, but it's also oversaturated in a way that everything is like everyone is super pretty. He has he has some kind of way that all of his even though that movie was only produced by him, all of his movies that are produced by him,
Mhm.
or not all but a lot, they have like this look to them that it's almost too cinematic. It looks good, but it's almost too cinematic. So you have
Yeah.
that style, and that was very prevalent. And of course, you have Jason X, which is like its own weird thing where like direct to video garbage wanted to go up in space.
Oh yeah, I seen that Jason X. I couldn't do nothing but laugh. I mean it was the same thing with Leprechaun. You
Yeah.
remember when the Leprechaun went up in space? Oh, darn. I have like all the Leprechaun series, and I was like, I need to rewatch these Leprechaun movies. But that was, where you had Leprechaun in the Hood, then you had Leprechaun in space, and it just gets really ridiculous. Like, just every year when they throw out, some supernatural horror character. Um, and what you were saying about New Line Cinema and what you said about Nightmare on Elm Street, New Line was not as big as Paramount, but
No, very small.
but it started up with Nightmare on Elm Street because I remember New Line having Nightmare on Elm Street and a couple other films, but you don't you had like those smaller uh, studios like them to like have horror movies. But yeah, I mean, totally, it just did. It just got really weird with it. It was just like, Jason just didn't have no rhyme or reason. And you're right, the whole um story of his mother and the camp counselors, it was just really stupid. I was actually born in 78, March of 78, before Halloween came out in November. I think that's, I was like, man, that's a special time, Michael Myers. And I showed my daughter the original Halloween movie, and she's like, man, that is the scariest shit I've ever saw. I'm like, yes, it really is. I'm like, it's still, and it's John Carpenter, and I love John Carpenter movies. Um, They Live, that was a really good. It's a corny science fiction, but the message in that movie, uh, really is relatable, especially with social issues and social things that we're dealing right now.
Yeah.
Um, I do like it when the horror directors do take different venues, just like not just from the same character. They branch out to do something a little bit different from what they did. You had Wes Craven who did Vampire in Brooklyn. That was just the cheesiest B movie, but I loved it. And he kept it in the B movie range. He did Curse, and of course you mentioned the Weinstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, wine fucker, wine bitch fucked his shit up. He had a great script, and the guy who played Billy Loomis in Scream, Steve Ulrich, was in this movie, and they filmed it, and it was a whole different storyline. It was great,
Yeah. It's
and
an insane mess.
yeah, and they like just literally just changed the story. They changed everything up. Wes was like, I'm done. Fuck it. I just get my money. I just don't want to be a part of it anymore. Yeah, it has something of my name of sort, but Weinstein just like they just really just asked that movie up, and it would have been a great werewolf movie on Wes Craven. Another one is People Under the Stairs. It's a 90s horror.
91.
Yeah, it is so good. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it has two actors that played on Twin Peaks. I remember them.
Yeah.
I used to watch Twin Peaks, when it came out in 90, David Lynch. I love, some David Lynch movies also.
Yeah.
And that was the that was the craziest movie, but you still had like that scare, you know, of that movie, and you had those two people, and I'm like, you're already played great, crazy, eccentric characters on Twin Peaks. What better, movie to put both of them in there? Tom, what's his name? Tom Everett. Yeah, Tom Everett. He was the werewolf on Stephen King's Silver Bullet too. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Silver Bullet. And
Yeah.
now, yeah, it's just kind of an interesting connection because I thought of because Silver Bullet, Scream in 2022, and Dawson's Creek were all shot in Wilmington, North Carolina.
That is correct.
What is interesting about Cursed is they have talked about releasing Craven's original cut
Hmm.
uh, before Harvey Scissorhands got his hand on it, and Harvey Weinstein. Did you know that? Because this happened with Guillermo del Toro
Uh-huh.
on Mimic from '97.
Yeah, I
He
remember that
sold a
movie.
script to Weinstein, and he made it under Weinstein. And Harvey Weinstein, of course, he wanted to change it because he was a true fascist in that sense that he wanted to control everything.
Hmm.
Eh, Artistic liberty doesn't exist in his mind. So and Guillermo del Toro is good friends with James Cameron, and James
Hmm.
Cameron almost went into a fist fight with Harvey Weinstein over that.
Holy crap.
Yes,
Oh, they were finna nuck and buck. They was like, call crime boss. They were James Cameron and Harvey Weinstein. They're ready to
yeah,
nuck and buck. That's fucking awesome right there. I don't blame them.
no,
I,
and I mean, if you count out the pervert part, which is kind of hard,
right.
but if you do, like there's not too much differences between Cameron and Weinstein because Cameron he has that same mindset making a movie there, like, no, I'm not a flawed human being that needs help occasionally. I am a god. He he just has this. I'm sure you know this reputation of more or less being tyrannic on his sets sometimes.
Yeah, I read that Cameron can be a bit of a an asshole, and like and that huge ass ego of his. Um, and you have actors like, man, Cameron is so hard to work with.
Yeah,
But they get the job done, and and I kind of feel that, just because he's the director, they're in his movie, and I feel that actors when they're doing interviews or articles, uh, they're just trying to like not throw Cameron up under the bus to like not let everybody know, like, look, this dude is a straight dick. I
Yeah.
understand that you want everything to go perfectly. Uh, One thing about perfectionists is that, you know, there a lot of times they're wrong, because once you start being a perfectionist, I mean, you just think everything is supposed to be so perfect. Even if you have it perfect the second time, it's just they don't allow themselves to like see it like that. Yeah, I was like that once upon a time, but then I was just like, you know what, I'm human. And I think that's what Cameron is not looking at, is that these actors are
No.
human. Everybody is on, on the crew, everything else. Um, he gave us Avatar. Uh, Avatar is beautifully visual. It
Mm.
is, but the
Yeah.
story is mediocre as shit.
Yeah.
It it is mediocre as shit. My son and my daughter, they acted out the whole parts of Avatar. It's like a
Yeah.
kids movie to them, and
Yeah.
and I know they coming out with another Avatar movie, but you see how long that was. Do you know when Avatar came out? My son was 2 years old. That movie kept him entranced at 2 years old because of the bright, pretty colors and everything. And
Yeah.
he's
Like
14 now. And it's,
I
and,
was.
it's, and they're taking very long to make an Avatar movie that damn long.
It's Cameron. He's like saying the technology isn't there for my
Oh,
vision.
the location person. Shit. You didn't pick the right location for this. I can see that from Cameron. I can see the wrenches and crap that he will throw at people just to have it so
Yeah.
perfect. Oh my god, that dude needs to pull the stick out of his ass.
That will likely never happen because the sad thing is, like, I mean, you can change at what age he is. He's 68 now, and
Oh,
like you can
oh,
change at that age, but it's really hard to change once you're 68. It's more likely when you're like 20 to like have those revelations and all that.
yeah.
But I mean, when the original Avatar came out, I was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I will be 21 when the new Avatar, when Avatar 2 comes out. So yeah,
That's a very, very long time to I mean, they should have just like followed up like within 3 years, like at least like in 2005, 2006, for like people to still like remember and like, oh my god, I can't wait, like Avatar, man, it's been like 3 or 4 years since it came out, to like still like have that love and that hype for Avatar. But then you're taking it like a decade or something.
you
I
want
mean,
to? Oh, go
huh?
ahead. No,
Oh,
no,
I was just saying, like, do you think the audience will be excited?
I don't know. This is, I mean, it's risky because the madman, has been shooting these things since 2017, and he will be shooting them until next year or in 2 years. So 6 or 7 years of non-stop shooting these things. It will be 4 movies coming out this year, 24,
Hmm.
26, and 28. When the last one come out, I will be 27 years old, which is insane to think about. Anyway,
Exactly.
so and what is even more insane is that in part 4, he said in an interview in part 4 that comes out in 2026, um, he shot footage for that movie in early 2020 because there are children actors that he feared will grow up. So at this premiere in 2026, you will have someone that is like 17, 18 years old and in the
Mhm.
movie it's 11.
Mhm.
It's at this point. I mean, I I can't even imagine spending 7 years on. No, wait. If you go the entire length, 11 years on a project.
Right.
It's insane. 11 years. I can't even fathom 11 years.
Me neither. That I mean, in 11 years, you should be. There's a lot of things that happen in 11 years. Much less this guy just sitting up. Oh, we're gonna have the gonna have the perfect the child after. Oh my gosh. I mean, with Stranger Things, at least the Coen brothers, when the kids started to grow up, I mean, they changed the storylines with it, but they still kept the same.
Well, hello? Was it my internet that decided to end the day? Perhaps. There we go. Did you hear me all the time?
What was that?
Did you hear me all the time? I don't know, my internet just crapped out or something.
Oh crap. I can hear you right now.
I can hear you too perfectly. But anyway, so we were talking about at some point in human history, 120-year-old James Cameron making Avatar Part 20 on March, produced by Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, that are now cyborg aliens.
Just like the Fast and the Furious movies, it's gonna be like Fast and the Furious 22 when they're gonna go up in space and you're gonna have this whole Star Wars type thing where they're fighting for they're the rebels and there's an empire. Of course, you
Yeah,
know, with Elon Musk Space X going on, it turns into the empire. Then you're gonna throw some Doctor Who into it with the secondary characters where they get lost in this timey wimey of
yeah,
everything, and you know, Doctor Who is like actually helping them, uh you know, and then Dom, he's gonna become like Space Jesus, and then we're gonna have like that bit of that Prometheus uh
yeah.
prequel
James
to like
Cameron is
Alien.
God
Yeah,
now.
yeah, that's how, like, that is actually how like all the Fast and the Furious franchise movies are gonna turn to, you know,
Avatar
Avatar
movies.
movies. They're just keeping it alive as much as they can. I mean,
Yeah.
woo!
Did you know? Did you know that scientists are currently trying to figure out ways to grow human organs? So, like, if somebody have a heart attack, and it's like, yeah, we have a new heart ready to go. You can put him in the person. Like, there we go, out. That is like the medical future they want from this vision. And um, so I just imagine in like 50 years they will have Fast and Furious Part 40, and they'll have like 130-year-old Vin Diesel, and he's like, "Oh no, he's having a heart attack. Get him a new heart. We're growing one at the moment." They will just start growing Vin Diesel parts to keep the franchise alive. He will be a human zombie. He will be RoboCop, but organic.
And then he might turn a little bit evil, like his character Riddick.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
let the yeah,
He
because
will.
he let the dark side take over him too. From this new grown heart, this new organic
Yeah,
grown, this non-GMO heart that's gonna happen to Vin Diesel.
yeah. Like,
Oh
like,
my.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But if you go down that rabbit hole just for a second, like, so scientists are currently trying to figure out ways to grow human body parts for to rescue lives. So, and there was actually a scientist at Harvard that managed to make a fish, like not a
Hmm.
sentient fish, but like it could swim out of human heart cells. He grew it like a functioning organism. And so they're pretty close actually. It's far from perfect, but it's closer than you think of growing human body parts and to the point where us humans can function as starfish. And like, yeah, it's amazing that we could potentially eradicate heart disease from humanity with this concept. But I'm just thinking like, I just know it that we are gonna get so weird with that concept once it's perfect. It's gonna get freaky as shit. Like,
It is.
and at the same time, Elon Musk is trying to figure out the way to download human consciousness as a PDF file. So, like, it's gonna get real freaky real quick pretty soon. They're like, honey, I don't like my body. I'm gonna go and shop for a new one at Amazon.
That is some Ghost in the Shell type. Yeah, I read that, and my cousin brought that to my attention. And before we get into that right there, we're gonna go ahead and like take a break and stuff, and we're gonna like come back on that right there because
Yeah,
woo, I couldn't. I was just like, "Whoa, are you serious about the?" I was totally blown away. But
yeah.
we're gonna come back. We're gonna like take a break, and then we're gonna come back. All right. All
So
right. Yes.
we're back. We're talking about future. We're talking about in 50 years when Elon Musk and a Harvard student have found a way to merge Vin Diesel and James Cameron into a sentient being that is Skynet. And this
Yep.
thing is unstoppable. It's an unstoppable force of ego. And that is how we will eventually live in a Marvel comic book. I'm here for it. I have accepted that reality can be changed by creatures that are descendants of chimpanzees. Nothing makes sense, and the world isn't meant to.
You just pretty much just summed that up, man. You just summed
Yeah,
it up.
I've pretty much summed it up.
You really did. But yeah, the whole the chip in the head brain, we can download everything like on Ghost in the Shell. I feel that is the most dangerous thing, in my
It
opinion, the
is.
most dangerous thing that mankind could ever do to destroy its own self and humanity. I feel that is a really it's really bad because if people start to feel that is the much easier way to connect just not only just the internet but to other people, what makes you think that people can actually do crimes? You see what I'm saying? It opens up that door. Crimes. You can
Yeah,
kill
it's
you can literally kill somebody, or you can frame somebody for murder.
yeah.
And I don't
It,
in my opinion, I don't think a lot of human beings are smart. I don't we're
no,
at that. We're still barbaric as shit.
we
We
are.
come to like having much less, like maybe not even close to like a 10% of critical thinking for ourselves. What makes you think that? I mean, I love Elon. He has great ideas. He's definitely a pioneer of what he does. But this chip in the head, downloading stuff, this is dangerous. I don't think a lot of us on this planet are still not very connected with our humanity. And I believe if we're going to do something like that, is we got to be like connected to humanity. I'm sorry, it's like, and
Mm,
I don't think that's not going to happen. Maybe like after me and you are super dead, like within 100 to 200 years, maybe I'm a big Star Trek fan. Maybe we have somebody that has like engine propulsion and science, like advanced science, and then we have aliens like the Vulcans that
Yeah,
landed. There's got to be like a World War III. I believe we're not gonna have that. If we do, it's going to be way way into the future. But a lot of us humans really have to get our shit together. 'Cause
we do, we do, and we we question why. we- because I'm a firm believer in spiritual realms in other worlds and all that, and humans always ask like why, like people that do believe like me in that stuff, like they ask why don't they contact us? I was like, I wonder why. I wonder why. Could it be because they see us as like, nope, that ain't happening anytime soon?
right. I'm the same way too. I'm really big on a lot of spirituality, and it's, oh gosh, I can go on with that right there,
Me
especially
too. Me too.
the rise of all of this. I do also do tarot readings, but a lot of people do all this tarot, and I'm an empath, and I can sense your energy, and there's people out there that actually use the whole spirituality, uh, interdimension,
Mm,
philosophies and things like that
yeah,
as scammers and manipulators, and they see that as a big cash cow. And it is, it's really, really
it
very,
is a
it's
massive
really
cash
popular.
cow.
It's a trend, but one thing that they don't understand is that this is not a trend. um
No.
it isn't. And my background is that I grew up like very strict Christian, all of that. But I knew something was different with me. And it's a little strange because there's
Mm,
that I noticed about myself. I'm, a bit clairvoyant. Of course, I'm highly sensitive to
mm,
a lot of people's energy, how their reactions, and even just reading like their body language. And it did. It caused me to be an outsider to, and I'm just like, I can't, you have that feeling like I can't be around this person because something about this person is sinister, something about this person is really off. And
mm,
a lot of times that has helped me, but a lot of times I ignored it because I didn't know uh, about that about myself.
mm,
But I took a Reiki class, Reiki healing class. There was four of us. Two of them was just actually in for the trend. And there was
mm,
one lady that I connected with because she was there because she has it. And
mm,
I automatically seen that in her. And I think with the whole spirituality thing, it's going to come to an end. It's always like when something is trending and somebody and they just take it and just bastardize it.
mm.
It's like they don't respect the origins of it. Like I said, I'm into hoodoo, but hoodoo is
Yeah,
actually it's like a bloodline thing. And like I get that from my grandmother, and it was for us, like in Black American culture, especially down in the South, that was a practice. That was like from the African diaspora, with the Yoruba
yeah,
religions and things like that, what they brought over. And
yeah,
that was a way of for them to connect of all the atrocities that was happening. And that's in my blood. And
yeah,
so when I start seeing that from my grandma, she would do things like she would put red pepper at the door. We had, they have a horseshoe over the door. There was things that she did, and I was like, you know what? I understand what she's doing, but what is she actually doing? That looks like witchcraft right there. But a lot of times they had to use that background, like, yeah, I'm a praying woman, Christian woman, to like disguise of the hoodoo that they've been learning and knowing and everything
Mm.
else. It's actually on both sides of my family. And and I'm very proud of it, but you still have people that think it's evil. It's not about God. You're worshiping the devil.
Everything you don't understand is evil. That's the basic human principle.
It
Um,
is.
and how I see it is, I I started to like, because I like to look everything in pattern, and I discovered a few patterns.
Mhm.
And one pattern I discovered is, why is there why is creative people and and people with brain types that are more likely to become creative,
Mhm.
why are those people the people with prophetic dreams and people that can sense energies and all that stuff? Like, why is that? Like, okay, is it because they are creative and it's all like in their head? Like, no, they believe it too strongly. I don't think that's the case. What I'm thinking is that all of us human beings have like a Wi-Fi link to the spiritual multiverse. We all are connected to it. Like, because our brains are computers. So if our brains are computers, why can't there be a Wi-Fi in our brains, but connected to the spiritual multiverse? And it's um and I think that whatever part in the brain that fuels the creativity, whatever neurological part is fueling that, that is the part where like the Wi-Fi transmitter, where 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 like that transmits out to the multiverse. And so I think it's just higher neurological energy in that area that allows the Wi-Fi transmitter to be stronger.
Yeah. Um, we call that downloads, like spiritual downloads.
Yeah,
And you are it is it's actually it is kind of rooted in quantum physics too. And that's something that
I think everything is rooted in quantum physics.
I'm reading up on that right there on quantum physics. I know just the basics of it, but not just all in it like I'm in, junior year of college, but
Mm,
just the basics of it. Like you said, the patterns, and there's so many patterns that a lot of times people don't even like notice it. And then of course we have so much stuff that's going on. And guess what? Like you said, our brains are like a computer, like a Wi-Fi. We're all connected to like those other realms and plus this
yeah,
realm too. And guess what? It gets clogged up. Nobody
uh,
is not cleaning out the history. You're not the cache.
no,
You're not updating. You're not updating your system. And that's the reason why a lot, and then you get slow. And sometimes, you may have to reboot. um
yeah,
that's the reason why you have like so many people that's in the dark, but then you have people, the conformist people. I ain't nothing wrong with people being conformist,
mm,
but those people are very terrified because they had those dreams, they had those talents, and everybody's talent is different, and things like that.
yeah,
But you had somebody long time ago who told them that they couldn't be that, or they can't be that
yeah,
creative. You suck. You're not gonna make it. You're gonna be subpar with it. And it is just part of like environment and culture, and of course the people that you're around.
yeah,
Some people that do are still, like myself and you and many others out there, have heard so much backlash from other people that try to make us feel like we're crazy, or
yeah,
you're an idiot, or you don't know what you're talking about. You need crazy pills, and you need to be locked up, and
mm,
some you may have some type of disorder or whatever. And it's, we have to like push through with that. And yes, it hurts our feelings because we want to share that with people, but you have people that are still in the dark about things. There's
yeah,
still people that have a fear. about stuff, they will cling on to. I mean, this is what I look at it. If you
Mm.
believe there is like a God, a Holy Ghost, and all of that right there, what makes it so different from what we are just talking about?
Yeah, and
How come you're not open minded to that?
it's a good question, and and that goes down to chaos.
Right.
Like, I have no proof, I have no evidence. Like, it's just theorizing based on mainly witness events and what paranormal researchers, Bigfoot researchers, UFO researchers are talking about based on their research. But like what I've come to the conclusion of is that the spiritual multiverse is insanity. It's chaos. And we don't want chaos. We want everything to be formed in this nice little reality box. And I love the term reality box because I listen to um, I listen to all kinds of encounters with weird things. And I listened to an encounter. It was a lady out in Utah that had encountered a Bigfoot out in the woods there, and she said such a good thing about that encounter. It was
Hmm.
so far out of my reality box. And I
Yeah.
love that term. It's like, and that's how I like to see it, because like we have this very conformist way of society, of the world, of our reality box. And then all of a sudden, like, you have everything figured out. Like, I know everything. I know all the answers. It's this, it's that, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, you're face to face with something that shouldn't exist.
Hmm.
And I mean, you hear that all the time. Like, what I'm thinking about is Bigfoot encounters, but you have like paranormal encounters, you have alien encounters, where like they're shell shocked. They're like, I was face to face with something that by all degrees it shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be there, but it was staring me down. And I just came to this realization that, okay, I had some weird things happen to me that I can't explain. I have a really hard time explaining them.
Hmm.
Uh, I have nothing like super incredible, but I just started thinking like all of these encounters that are coming in for like all of these call shows, this podcast where like, and people can call in, and most people do call in anonymous. It's
Hmm.
share their feelings. Like, there's thousands of them.
Hmm.
Like, is every encounter fake? And it's to the point where like they're so diverse in perspective of the world. It's biologists, it's artists, it's lawyers, it's court judges, it's sheriff, it's police department people. Like, all of these different world views that are seeing the same things. And like, that has me puzzled. Like, if only one of these are true, that means that everything of this is most likely true. And what that entails is terrifying in the sense that our view of reality is we don't have it. We have nothing.
Yeah.
And what made me realize that this is most likely interdimensional if it exists is an encounter from Skinwalker Ranch. And Skinwalker Ranch is very interesting. It has all types of encounters:
Hmm.
paranormal, Bigfoot,
Hmm.
and UFO, spirit. I mean, all types. I mean, if you love paranormal, you can research it and find tons of stuff. Like, every area of things that are taboo, you can find there, taboo in our sense. But there's one encounter that I heard from there that like really messed with my brain. Like, how, like, UFOs and ghosts is already weird that that's connected, but this encounter was ultra weird.
Hmm.
But there was a couple of researchers out there that was researching, and they claimed they saw a velociraptor and
Yeah.
shot at it, and
Yeah. I get that.
yeah, and I was like, a velociraptor? What kind of, in what world does these three connect paranormal or four? Paranormal, Bigfoot, UFO, and velociraptor? Like, a velociraptor? How? Then I realized it's all interdimensional. Like, it most likely didn't come through fully
Yeah.
because they shot at it and nothing happened. So I think what it was a fingerprint from another dimension, because I think the reason why these hotspots like Skinwalker Ranch are so active is because the
Mhm.
walls between reality is very thin there. So things comes through regularly. I think that's just, you have those hotspots where that happen, and I think it's just there exists, like Stephen Hawking said, infinite universes. Like there's possibly a universe where dinosaurs still roams, and like they caught a glimpse of that universe out there, and it sounds insane to say, like these people caught a glimpse of a universe where there's still dinosaurs. Like that's crazy talk. But if you look at the science, technically not, and that's really interesting.
It is, that is, it is really interesting. I just don't think we're really ready for stuff like that. And I
No,
do
you're
believe
not.
there, yeah, I do believe in like alternate universes and realities. It's the mirrorverse. I was watching Star Trek Discovery, uh and there was like this mirrorverse. You have the
Yeah,
Terran, and then you have their Star Trek, universe. The Terran were more tyrannical. They were vicious. They were just they were
yeah,
ruthless. And the characters that they met themselves from that Terran universe, and they just like, whoa, how this is, they just couldn't believe that themselves can be like this. And I think I was like, that's maybe, what you say yin and yang, the light and the dark. We
yeah,
all have that yin and yang, the balance of everything. I believe in that,
yeah,
and I totally believe I have a dark side too. I was like, ooh, that
yeah,
scares me, but I was like, well, I can, but I accept it. I really do
yeah,
accept it, and the whole like paranoia thing, oh my gosh, I mean, there's nothing around here is nothing but ghost stories. My grandparents
yeah,
actually have a ghost that's been in their house for the longest time. Woo, which maybe not be afraid of things like that,
yeah,
because they're dead. They're not under, they just came through that part of that universe, that glimpse. They're like, oh, okay, let's like go through here. And in my
yeah,
aunt's room, it used to be this really, really cold spot. It was two cold spots in the room, and that's like how he came out. There's one
mm,
by her rocking chair right by the window, and then there was one like by an electrical outlet where her stereo was at. And you can, her room can be very warm, like say like a 70, 71, 72. But when you go in those two places, it is basically like 60 something going
yeah,
down. Like it was super cold. But you can't just tell in and everybody that, because nobody's not gonna believe it
no,
until they come in the house. And we have had people that has spent the night there, and
mm.
they will not come back anymore because of that ghost that was like roaming around in our house. And
Have,
my daughter seen it, my
yeah,
cousin seen it. It's like people in our family have seen it, people that was, family friends have seen it.
yeah,
And so,
just kind of
we
vibing.
don't. Yeah, I know. Like, hello. But it used to like watch us when we were in the kitchen eating, and it would be in the living room, and it would just be this big, tall, black shadow just sitting there, just staring at us. And we were like, "Oh crap, this is unnerving. This thing." And we're looking at the corner of our eye, and we see this shadow sitting there watching us eat.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, it got a little bit. Ooh, but like during out the time my uncle, he passed away. At the time, he understood all of that, and he was like, you know one day if he comes through or whatever, just call his name or ask him for his name and just talk to him, be friendly. And when I
yeah.
started doing that, I wasn't scared anymore.
You know what is there is a very interesting encounter from the real life Conjuring house.
Yeah.
Is there? And in that encounter, all the three sisters saw the ghost, and one sister could only see the flimmer,
Mhm.
and another sister could see the silhouette, and the
Mhm.
third sister could see the whole man. And that kind of goes back to like variations of how strong is that spiritual transmitter in your brain.
Mhm.
It's I think that's proof of that, if that encounter is true. And that is really interesting that you have that type of ghost. And I heard those type of ghost encounters before, where like people, there's it's kind of like it's watching over them. And I heard of on one of those call-in podcasts, there was a similar to you paranormal encounter where they lived in a house
Mhm.
uh, where an elderly couple, they wanted children but they couldn't get children.
Yeah.
And the moment his mom got pregnant with him, the house started to smell. That like it kind of, yeah, I think the ghost smell is kind of like that kind of sulfur-ish kind of smell.
Yeah.
And so he and like they put new wallpaper on the house. They like did a bunch of renovations, and the smell didn't disappear. They couldn't figure out. And the day he was born, the smell
Mhm.
vanished. And he talks about that from time to time, and especially through his childhood when he was living constantly in that house, he could see, and it's the same way you describe it. Like it was like this man watching over him. And when he heard that story of the man that the couple that wanted the children but couldn't have it, like he started to realize that like that's the old man, that his dream of this house having a kid in it is true, and he's
Mhm.
just admiring it and watching over him.
Has that's really interesting. Speaking of like how people be like ghosts and spirits like
Yeah.
watch. I was married years and years ago. It was like not a good part of my marriage, and I was very close. It was
Mm,
coming to the time. I'm finna file for divorce and things like that. And I feel that when you have spirits that are watching you, even if you think it's like a relative that passed on,
mm.
especially when there's traumatic things or things that are changing, with I believe that we sometimes attract that.
We
Um,
do. I think we do.
yeah, and at the time, my daughter was 10. Yeah, she was 10, and she was getting ready for school. Um, and I had like, I mean, I was going through depression and everything else, and like I said, this is like the end of my marriage, and get ready to file for divorce.
Yeah.
And she came in the room to say, "Bye, Mama. I'm going to school. Love you." Well, she
Yeah.
came in the room and she looked and she took off running. She left, and she didn't say bye or anything else like she usually do. I mean, like she does. And she years later she said to me, she's like, "Mom, there was like this dead girl over your head singing, and she was
Mm,
stroking your hair, and she was just making sure that you were good." She's like, "At the time when I seen it as a kid, I'm like, oh my god." She's like, "A dead girl," my mom, "a dead
mm,
ghost girl." And when she mentioned that, I said, "You know what? There was somebody humming and singing over my head, and I remember that." And the little girl
mm,
had this very soothing hum that she knew that I was going through a lot of things. She knew that. I needed, it's like she was protecting me. I mean, she scared the
Yeah.
crap out of my daughter, but she's like, in a way, she's like, don't worry, I got mom, I got her back, telling
Yeah.
that to my daughter. But that like from that, she started seeing my mother that passed away at school. Of course she was, it like divorce does, like when you're going through it, it does affect the children. So it started, had um my mom was protecting her, and she let me know. She's like, she's like, Granny used to come in my room every time
Mm.
my stepdad have an argument. She come in and sing me to sleep, and I will go to sleep. And she was there for me.
Yeah.
And she haven't seen my mom since she was 2 years old, because she passed away when she was 2 years old.
Mm.
And I bawled like a baby, because I believed that she would not just come up and just say, kids won't say things like that just to an adult, to say like, oh yeah, like I seen your dead mom. But that was not her intention. She was like, look, I know it sounds far fetched, but your mother used to protect me.
Uh.
There was
Yeah.
a dead girl over your head making sure you're good, and she was singing to you.
Yeah.
And my son the same way. He sees stuff, he sees spirits and everything too. I don't know right now because of a lot of teenage angst and everything else. He
Yeah.
keeps his mind occupied with video games. But it's like it's passed down to my kids too. They can see stuff, like either they can hear it, or they can sense it, or they can see it.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It
But
is. It is.
it's an
And
incredible phenomenon.
yeah, I think
Uh,
there's much to.
hmm
Go on.
what was that?
Go ahead. I didn't
Oh,
mean
no,
to
no, no.
interrupt you.
I was actually picking up something. It just sounded like I was gonna like say something, but I was
Yeah.
actually picking up something. No, you go ahead, honey.
Yeah. There. I have two things of personal weird encounters. I have a couple, but like there's two that I really can't explain. Like maybe three. And one is, of course, it happened in this room actually,
Oh
and
wow.
like it's and the reason why it stuck with me is because I stretched a muscle because of it. But
Mhm.
so anyway, I this was 2017. I woke up and I rolled around in bed, newly awake because I was sleeping head against wall, like
Mhm.
I was seeing the wall only, and then I rolled around and I see for like 2 seconds uh yeah, what is called a hat man in paranormal lore, like
Mhm.
a silhouette of a dark silhouette of a man with a hat, and I immediately like jump up, and I jump up so hard I mildly stretched a muscle in my arm. I remember.
Ooh.
Like that's one encounter I can't, and it disappeared the moment that happened.
Oh wow. Hope
And
your hope
another,
your arm was all right afterwards.
yeah, it hurt for like 24 hours, but then it went away. Um, but and another thing that I can't explain is a little over a month ago I was
Mhm.
in a mild um car car accident where I hit that
Oh
where
no.
I hit that at slow speed. It was nothing serious, but at slow speed, I hit what's it called, the light thing over the streets. What is it called?
Uh, the oh gosh, the light, the light pole,
Yeah, I hit a
street,
light
the street
pole.
pole. Yeah, yeah, the light pole, like street pole. Yeah. Oh
I hit a
man.
street pole because it was slippery. Um, and um, when I backed out my car from
Mhm.
the driveway, when I was driving out, I so my car is here, and our oh wait, you can't see me, stupid. But anyway, my car was parked in front of kind of in front of my dad's car. But I was
Yeah.
backing out thinking I'm skilled enough, I won't hit it. But anyway, all of a sudden I feel this crash and it rocked my body back and forth and I hit my head on the headrest, I remember, because it's like I was just relaxed, chilling in the
Mhm.
car, so it's just kind of rocked. It's like, oh
Mhm.
no, I hit my dad's car. I was like, okay, because in my car, reverse likes to jump out when it's backing up. It's like, was it reverse that jumped up? Like, no, it's still in reverse. It didn't jump out. I didn't hear it jump out because it's makes a sound when it jumps out. So like, okay, so it's not that.
Mhm.
And it was like a smooth surface, so it's not that either. Like that's weird. So I become terrified. Like, no, I have backed into my dad's car. I was like, shit. So I walked out. There's nothing. I had hit nothing, but I
Hmm.
felt an impact, a severe impact, a pretty severe impact that shook my body back and forth. Okay,
Yeah.
that's freaky. And then 1 or 2 hours later, I hit that telephone pole or light pole, and I my body rocked in the exact same way, and the crash felt exactly the same.
Maybe that was
I
a. I think that's a premonition right there.
That was one of the freaky.
That's a
I've told.
premonition.
I don't think I've told anybody about that, but like I didn't even when I hit it. I was like I was just worried about the car because I was
Mhm.
fine. So I didn't. So it was only the car I cared about. So I didn't reflect on it. But it's like it was the next day. I was like, wait, what did I sense? That is one of that is the most unexplained moment in my life because I can't figure out the way because the reverse didn't jump out because I would have heard it because it makes a loud sound and it does like surface was smooth. I didn't hit anything. Like that's the weirdest thing that has ever happened so far in my life.
I don't find that weird. Uh, Premonitions or deja vu are usually. It's just a signal that you already picked up from somewhere because time is not linear. You
Yeah,
picked it
I
up
think that too.
and it's a precog of like, okay, this is going to happen, and then when you get in that situation of reality when it's going to happen, you're like, oh snap, you could either remember that and stop the whole thing to change it, or you just ignore it and it just happens.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't I don't
insane.
find that I don't find that to be weird. And I don't find that story to be weird or nothing like that. That's I think a lot of people can relate to that. They're just
Yeah,
too they just can't just compartmentalize in their mind of like,
no,
okay, how that happened. That couldn't be right. They get to thinking like that, so they just keep it to themselves.
yeah,
I don't know. I think like I'm glad you're all right and
yeah,
everything, but yeah, that's a deja vu premonition thing. That's,
yeah,
that's
and
it's fascinating.
it is fascinating. And I have a friend that like he had a similar thing, but in a dream. Like he had a dream where he was getting his hand operated,
Hmm.
and he was awake during the operation, and next to him was his dad and two doctors. And then like 2 or 4 years later,
Hmm.
that happened in the exact same way. He had some kind of thing happen to his hand, so needed a mild operation, and two doctors, dad sitting next to him, and he was awake.
That is crazy, but
Yeah,
I like to hear things like that, but also I believe that we are still afraid of things like that because of our perception of reality, and
yeah,
we're too scared to like open that up a little bit more. And I
we
believe
are.
if people start opening up a little bit more to it, it won't be as much like, oh my God, you won't be afraid to tell people about it
Mm.
or share your experience with what happened to you, and you're not going to sound crazy. I
Yeah.
believe, and that's just my take on it. People just need to open up that there's more than just that 3D world that we live in. It's 4 and 5, here, and
And
just no matter what,
it's
it's
infinite.
multiple, it's infinite. It really is, it's infinite. And like they say in the Bible, like how people have a perception of angels and demons and etc. But especially with angels, we have like the image of the angels, very beautiful and gorgeous and things
Yeah.
like that. But if you read like old texts and how they described angels supposed to be like with wings, with seraphats, with like
Yeah.
50 million eyeballs and things like that. And I believe that would terrify the crap out of a lot of human beings. That's the
Yeah.
reason why angels, like they said, will come in the appearance of like a human, so it won't scare the shit out of them. Because if they come
Mm.
up with some eyeballs and some wings and stuff, I mean, that's that will just melt your brain.
It will melt your brain.
You will go into madness. You will your brain and everything else, your whole being will become into a HP Lovecraft story.
Yeah. And there are paranormal cases, cryptozoology cases, where people have seen like insane stuff, and they're like, yeah, like no, reality is screwed at this moment, and like I I have had those weird things, like minor weird things happen to me, but I
Yeah.
can only imagine like people with severe paranormal encounters, like because when I had the thing with the car happen, I just realized like shit, like that's legitimate proof that my theories and all that I like to talk about, that for me is a belief and not something that I most likely know is real. Like that's I just got proof of that,
Mhm.
and what that entails is insane. And like yeah, what people like live on these properties with like multiple type of interdimensional beings coming through, like what kind of world do you get when you encounter these things?
Yeah, really. Woo! Speaking of
Yeah.
interdimensional things and encounters and stuff, what do
Yeah.
you think about the series of Interview with the Vampire?
Seriously, do you mean Interview with the Vampire from 94, or what do you...
No, they're creating a series on
Yeah, yeah,
A&E.
yeah, that's right. Now we're all
Yeah.
right, ladies and gentlemen. We have now gone through God, angels, James Cameron, Vin Diesel, God, uh, potentially finding evidence for the afterlife, and now we're back to horror movies. Anyway,
I'm telling you, this is why it's the random chat and this is the random horror show. This has been
yeah,
so much
we
fun. It
started
really
talking
has.
like the discussion started with Dawson's Creek, and we're now trying to solve the Bible.
It's like it got like silly, then it got deep, and then it got like extra deep.
You know, I actually had a thought when
Uh-huh.
we were at the Dawson's Creek
Uh-huh.
section, where like in the 90s we like teenage shows were like Dawson's Creek. Everyone is very pretty and everything is like really good looking. I haven't seen a lot of Dawson's Creek, so I don't know what kind of subject matter they take up, but I imagine it's not like the heaviest of heavy, right?
No, it
No.
really isn't.
And then I started thinking about like a modern teenage show that's very popular is Euphoria, and that is a dark show. Like that brings up like severe mental illness in teenagers, drug issues in teenagers, like what it's like, what true life as a teenager in high school actually is. And
I
you
haven't
are
Oh, I'm
In the
sorry.
show, like you're witnessing teenagers get threatened to death by their boyfriend that wants to shoot them.
I have not seen Euphoria. My daughter watches it,
Mm,
and I need to check it out because that what you just mentioned. I mean, I got HBO Max, and
mm,
I'm gonna check that out. Um, that right there. I just got through talking to my uncle about like how serious this guy was in high school. I mean, he's in prison.
mm.
He's in prison right now. He will not get out till he's 75 years old.
Oh
But I
wow.
told him how much he was threatened to like beat me up. And this is a guy. And I'm like, wow, y'all, you act like I'm like a dude or like we can size up. And I didn't understand his anger. And it's a lot of history behind that. Um, but from that guy right there, what I'm telling you about, he used to, she's an ex friend, but at the time we were friends in high school, he would beat her and she would
Yeah,
come to my house and
yeah,
she was crying. She'd tell me everything, what he did to her. And I'm like, get away from him. I was like, this guy is actually my third cousin.
mm,
And I was like, get away from his ass. Like, what the fuck? I'm like,
mm,
this dude is just being an asshole, and and of course he comes from two toxic dysfunctional parents too, so it's like I feel bad for him during that time in high school,
yeah,
because it was some things that one of his friends was telling me that his dad was actually shooting at him. He had to jump on the car for his dad not to shoot at him.
yeah,
um he had the most craziest uh, toxic dysfunctional childhood. And his dad also beat his mother too. So there's domestic violence right there. And he was just monkey see, monkey do, as we always say. He
yeah,
seen his dad was doing that, and he did that to her. She she got away. It was very sad of what actually happened. He came to the college that she was attending. She was leaving out. He came up there with a gun. It was really, she had to go through court. She went through depression, and she has a son by him also, but he's doing very well. He's a teacher. They both teach at the same school district, but it was literally hell. And it all started from high school, and there was a lot of people. That's the reason why I didn't want to date in high school, is because I was seeing this threatening violence, from high school guys doing this to their girlfriends. Or you may be
mm,
that bookworm gothic girl and everything, and you have,
yeah,
it was just crazy. And that, it caused me to be very mean to people. I also bullied people because I was lashing out because I was very sad. And you had teachers that seen things that was happening, they turned a blind eye. I had two teachers that actually see what was going on. They stood up and stepped up, and and defended me. And I mean, I was very happy, and I had a couple of friends, um, not that many friends. I just decided, I was like, well, I'm not done, like whatever, y'all, they're all pieces of shit. But I had a few
mm,
people defend me also, and and I think that's the reason why my daughter likes it, because she can relate to that, and she's seen that going on too. And I don't, American high school kids have it so damn tough. It's not only just because it's crap like that, but you also have to like, damn, I hope somebody don't come and shoot up the school.
yeah,
I hope somebody don't come in, and I hope a teacher doesn't try to like uh start having like inappropriate relationships and blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
Because that happens a lot with these teenagers. And and they do, they get called, oh, you're a liar, you're just saying this, and
yeah,
that's not happening. And then in reality, when years come out, those kids were actually telling the truth. And I worked at a school district, and whatever I see, what those kids seen, I believed it.
mm,
I seen that.
yeah,
And you could, and I could say. as much as I can about such and such or this employee's behavior, strange behavior, it will be swept up on the rug. It was nuts. I
Mm,
said, you know what? I'm putting in my resignation because it just seemed like y'all don't have the welfare of these children.
yeah,
They
yeah,
don't. They don't. The adults
yeah,
fail them.
and like that really, like that is a very international problems, and like how that problem manifests is
Hmm.
solely down to how what type of culture we are talking about. Like in a Swedish school, you don't have the fear of school shootings because we have very strict gun laws. Like we have a gun culture, but it's very controlled. We
Right.
do have knife attacks in certain cities. A knife attack in school is a very real thing that could happen. Um, but like it's definitely turning a blind eye is definitely a reality in a lot of school. And I got to thinking on a story that my English teacher in gymnasiet, which is
Hmm.
kind of Swedish equivalent to high school,
Hmm.
told me, where he worked at this school one time. That it's a school that teaches truck drivers, that teaches tracker operators, and all of this, like very a blue collar school.
Oh, and we call
And
those vocational technical schools, but mostly
yeah,
vocation.
yeah,
Yeah.
and in like these schools have a very specific culture where it's like it's you have to dress a certain way, like it's the standard bro hillbilly look. You're most likely picturing the right image, I hope. And like everybody uses tobacco, everybody drinks, and everybody talks the same way, and it's a very pressure culture. And he talked about like kids coming in the first year that were very clean when it comes to their appearance, and when they're left they were like this bro hillbilly. Or maybe hillbilly is not the it's the wrong term. Yeah, but you know what I get, what I mean, I
Okay,
hope.
I'm gonna school you on that. Since I'm like around redneck country, we have country.
Yeah,
What you described, that's actually country. Like a lot of people like, spin tobacco, very blue collar, drink a beer, I'm gonna give me a
yeah.
burr, you know. And then you have redneck, that's a little bit close with country, but
Mm,
it's a little different, especially has to do with, you know, Civil War heritage and junk like
yeah,
that. And then you have hillbilly, where it's
yeah.
mostly taking place like it's kind of like the same thing like country, not totally redneck, but
Mm,
this is more like in the hills, and
yeah.
it's just different part like in Virginia, Appalachian Mountain. It just depends on what region in the South that you're in. I'm mostly like redneck and country culture in it. And then you got like uh Geechee, I wouldn't say Geechee, but like in Louisiana,
Mm,
we call it's not a very nice term, but
okay.
we call them coon asses. And so I know, right? If you gotta
Yeah,
understand, like, but that's what we call Louisiana people. I don't call Louisiana people like that, but when you hear somebody, even from Louisiana people, they're from Louisiana, and it's like, yeah, I'm a coon ass because that's normal. It's not like, oh, it's
yeah.
racial, but it's normal to hear that because that's what how's it been for like years and years and years.
Mm,
Somebody that's from the country and hunts in the swamps and all that shit and catching
mm,
alligators. We call them coon ass. And then
yeah,
we got country
yeah,
rednecks, and then you go deeper into Mississippi
yeah.
and Alabama, you still got like that
Very interesting.
country redneck, and then some parts of different places, and then it goes up into the Tennessee,
Yeah,
Kentucky. It gets like country redneck, then hillbilly. So
yeah,
it's different regions where
yeah.
you have
The,
all that, but I'll call them country. That's pretty much
yeah,
like
country maybe.
how it
The
is.
thing is, I it's that solely was language barrier problem. I couldn't find a better term for it. It was solely because of that. It's like hillbilly is definitely a very wrong term to use for that type of people. But anyway, the, to the point. Like like in that type of culture, racism is definitely a big problem. Casual racism is even a bigger problem. Um, Central rural Sweden, where I live, is the cradle of Swedish Nazism. It is the Swedish Nazists. Wait,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. I hope I pronounced it right. Uh, it comes from here, and it has a long history of racism, to set the stage, going back as as far as anybody remembers. But so anyway, in the school,
Hmm.
uh, there was a black student,
Hmm.
and he had zero friends in that school, um, because he nobody wanted to talk to him. And so this teacher that told me the story, he said he went to the principal and said like, we have this student here, and that it's clear like nobody wants to talk to him. Like, what should we do about it? And this
Right.
teacher, he just said like, but have you ever thought that maybe he wants to be alone? So yeah, that's a Swedish example of that you talked about.
I don't think anybody does want to be alone at school.
No.
I mean, you have to have like some interaction, but a teacher, I mean, just looking at just cultural wise, I'm like, that teacher is ass wrong for saying something like that because he doesn't know that student. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like, have you talked to the student? Did you, and I mean, did you interact with this student? And oh Lord, it's stuff like that is, it's everywhere. I mean,
yeah,
even, in your country, you live in a rural part of Sweden.
yeah,
Um, Here where I live, it's still a little bit behind, but it's a lot of change that has happened. It just took a long time. Um, it's more, and and then you have people like just throw in, like you said, the casual racism, the systematic racism, things like that. Um, I look at it like there is, like, you have that half that does discriminate against somebody for skin color,
mm,
nationality, ethnicity, you name it. But a lot of times it's usually somebody is just being extremely jealous of that person because they feel inferior to them, and they feel that, like, they shouldn't deserve that, and I'm gonna go ahead and do blah 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 blah. I'm gonna
yeah,
call them out, and then we're just gonna throw in like all the racial slurs and things like that. And that took me, a while to like, uh, to figure that out. And I have friends like, just every nationality, everything else. My daughter, she's mixed. Her father is white. I was married to a black man, and my dating is like very colorful, and with my platonic friends and romances and things like that.
mm,
But but that's like how I like want that life for myself, because I like, yes, I do notice color. Yes, I do notice this and everything. But to me, that is so beautiful because I can like respect people's differences and their cultures and things like that. It just makes me want to know them more, not just because of their culture and et cetera, et cetera. That's the
yeah,
bonus part, but just know them as a human being. And
yeah,
that's just,
definitely.
to me, that's just the beauty of like of how we are. But some people just touched in the head and slow as hell and everything to not get that.
Yeah,
And
it's the same. Like this goes back to our paranormal discussion actually, where
mhm,
it's the reality box. Like, you, I use the term reality box in a paranormal perspective, but like you can use it in whatever perspective you want, because we want our little reality box. And like it's in like if I look at our where I live, it's very common that like people do a similar trade, um that their fathers or their mothers did. It's because it's they're stuck in this reality box. Like
Hmm.
it's it's not being able to create a new identity. Instead, you can only base an identity, and like
Yeah.
that creates bigotry. That's where bigotry comes from. Not
Hmm.
creating, instead you're basing. Like basing after a while becomes very stale, like a Friday the 13th movie. I can connect this.
Yeah, basically, like you said, it becomes stale like a Friday 13 movie. It does, and a lot of times people they don't realize that they are being taught like this at home, by some parent or grandparent, a relative, and that's really hard for them to like, dang, that's my relative, but dang, they're saying like the wrong crazy crap that I don't believe in. And I wish like, you know, people didn't have to, kids growing up hearing things like that didn't have to hear stuff like that. And then when they get out there in the world and they start seeing something different, it makes them pissed off at their parents or whoever's teaching them that. And they're like, well, damn, why you lie? Or they would sit there and let that that brainwashing let them get to them, and they start
Mm,
to continue the legacy of that.
yeah, definitely, definitely,
And
definitely. And it's, I think at a point you have to realize that you have to start creating. You have to start embracing other either identities or other way of life, because it's very important. Um, like we talk about biological evolution, but mental evolution is way more important actually to discuss in a way.
yeah, it is this emotional intelligence. uh I don't know if I don't know if we're gonna get to that point.
Yeah,
Are we gonna get there? You still have people that are working on themselves, work in
yeah,
progress, things like that. You're 20, right? You're gonna be 21 this year, right?
yes.
Of course, they say that when you become a full grown adult, mature adult, is when you get to be 26. That's when everything
I
comes
heard
complete.
25.
Yeah, yeah, it comes in completion right at 26. But I tell you this right here, when you get to be in your 40s, that's like actually from everything that starts at 26 all the way up to your 40s. I would say like 41. That's where everything that you learn and gain, experience, set things, goals and things up for yourself. That's like where you really become that really mature adult. You are like definitely an adult right at that time. And when I know people will say, because I'm 44, and people will say like, "Oh, that's so old," and they have like that concept of thinking when you're in your 40s, you're so old. And I don't look at it like that. I'm still young. I'm just a young, middle-aged person, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that I look back and I'm like, God, I'm so glad I'm not in my 20s. I hate when people's like, I wish I was still in my 20s. Me, I'm like, I don't give a shit about my 20s. I'm just glad I'm out of that, because that's your period right there, your growth period. This is where you finding yourself. This is what things like what you like, this everything is tall topsy turvy, and you start to learn about yourself and what you all about, it's coming together. And then you
mm,
have like 26 all through up to your 40s and stuff to like, really live.
yeah,
And in my 30 and in your 30s, you start your your mindset starts to change. It starts like emotionally, it starts to kick in. I would say it starts to kick in around like 29. It kicks in like that.
Mm.
It just depends on people. It
It
depends.
does.
It depends on the individual. But I think, but I look and see like your generation. You're around my daughter's age, and I see like how much y'all are seeing so much clearer
Mm.
than,
It's
because
due
I'm
to
gener
the internet.
yeah, because it's the internet, right? Correct. And because I come from Generation X, I was like right in that age of like of the internet getting started, and I should be like more pronounced in it and things like that, but I'm not. I still kind of like operate like on. I'm slightly more on the technophobe side, but I still have to have uh I'll still want to have social media interaction and things like that because everything has changed. But yes, was it a struggle for me to like really connect the dots? Sure.
Mm.
Because I was like, this newfangled crap and everything. But I was like, you know what? I gotta learn how to embrace it, but also to be emotionally mature to like say, hey, this is enough. You don't need to like fall down a rabbit hole with this. You can use this to your advantage like as a tool, and so it won't be so overwhelming on you, and you can still feel you feel like you still live in reality where the grass is growing, the sun is shining, and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel that's a really good healthy balance um of that right there. And but yeah, y'all, your generation just definitely gets it, and I'm like so proud of y'all too. Because
Yeah.
it's like I'm so proud of y'all. I mean, there's things that when we were your age, we had, we turn a blind eye, or we just kind of like, how this we're making excuses for other people for their
Mm.
bad behaviors, but now y'all are like calling them out like it is. And
Mm.
even when we was calling people out of what the fuck they did, and we're saying, hey, they're wrong, blah blah blah. They want, oh, you're just saying that because you're jealous of them. That
Mm.
was that they had a lack of the emotional intelligence, but yeah, the brain wasn't connecting because around the age. But now I see
Mm.
that y'all are gaining a lot of that emotional intelligence, and
Y-
it just blows my
Yeah.
mind. It really does. I'm glad.
Yeah. I'm like social media and internet comes with obvious issues, and you can discuss those issues for hours. But there is a very much a bright side to it, and the bright side is it's so easy for people nowadays to find their community because
Right,
you don't get to choose where you were born.
right,
That's not your choice. That's someone else's choice. So from day one, your life is based upon that a choice made by other people for you.
right.
And at some point, you start making your own choices. And at that point, you have to find a community at first and start making like the big choice is finding your flock, finding your community. And then there are all the other choices based on finding that community. And the great thing about the internet is you you can see all the options now, because
Yeah.
nowadays, back in the day, you could only see a certain the choices around you. Like if you never left, let's say, the state of Texas, you never saw, you potentially missed a lot of options of communities that actually showed where you were. And
Mhm.
that goes back to, at some point in your there's a point in your life where you decide, and that decision, yeah, you can take it back. It will become difficult, it's possible, but to clarify, like, at some point you have to make a decision. Do I want to base or do I want to create? And I think that is Um, like that is the pinnacle of our human lives in a lot of ways. There are many pinnacles, but that is one of them, I think. Where like, okay, so I want to create. Okay, so then I choose these communities. Then I become a creative person, or I become this, that, and that, and or I want to base. Like, okay, then I will take over my dad's workshop or whatever. And none of these are bad choices. They're just choices. They're just lifestyles.
Yeah.
And you can get stuck in the middle. You can definitely get stuck in the middle if you are grown. If you grow, I actually wrote a poem on this, where
Mhm.
if you're grown up in a world where everything is based, a lot of stuff is based, if not everything, and the
Yeah.
people that are choosing to create instead of basing are moving out to find creating communities, you definitely get stuck. And because you can get stuck because you want to be a part of a creating community, but like the real life around you is basing community, and
Yeah.
that can be very difficult. So I wrote a poem actually where it's about this guy that's walking a road, and the road is right between two worlds,
Hmm.
two different reality boxes, and one world is the basing one, where everything kind of is a blob identity, where like everything is based upon what came before. Like what comes after is it's different. It has new features, but at the end, it's in the core is the same. And the other one is completely new. It's only creating, and it's completely stuck between this world. And like all, and my poem ends with all it takes is one step forward, one step backwards. You make the
Hmm.
choice.
Hmm. That's cool. Have you have you ever like talked to people that feel like they are stuck like in uh small towns or things like that or whatever?
I would view myself as that, as someone who is that. So I would say I meet myself every day. So here I am.
Yeah. Um I know that that could be like a horror movie for it's a horror story for a lot of people, especially where
Mm,
I'm at, and it's because they feel like they didn't have a choice because the choices was there, but it's just more the people that were raising them or around them just on the account of didn't want them to make those choices for themselves. And
mm,
so they're like stuck on this, they stuck. And so
mm,
they did the whole I gotta get married, I gotta get a job, I gotta have got kids, and by the time they're 30 they're divorced and
mm.
dead, and they turn into an alcoholic, or they get on meth. It's
Yeah.
things like that. But I had a conversation with my brother.
Mm,
He just left, and yeah, he's going back to Romania. And we had this conversation, and I was like, when people are like in small towns like that, I said, do you realize that sometimes they really do belong here because of how they are?
mm,
And I said to him, I was like, I know long ago where we were like, we could get out of this bitch ass town, and these people suck, and we were like, that was us in our 20s, and he left. He lived in Houston and different other places. He joined the military, and then he got out and everything, and then the job that he take it takes him everywhere. And of course, I left, went to college. He also did too. Um, I went out to like venture out to Los Angeles. At the time, I was I was a single mom also, but I
mm.
had somebody that was like, hey, I will help you, like, come, I'm gonna help you and your daughter because he was a nice guy, and he just didn't look at it like, oh, it's just a charity case that has a small child. He just seen a lot of things that was in me that other people didn't see, and I
mm,
had that choice of doing that. But at the time, I was off and on dating with my son's father, and of course, he got in my head and said I was this and that, I'm mediocre, and I
mm,
wanted to like, and it was in the makeup, and I wanted to do special effects, creature feature makeup and stuff because of like Tom Savini and all them.
yeah,
I was, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, yes, yes, that's how I looked at it because I had that plan, that future for myself. I was at that road right there,
yeah,
that's that road. So I felt like, and I didn't see all that confidence in me at that time, but I knew I
mm,
had it, but I self doubted myself. So I went that other path and I got married, and I had my son. Marriage wasn't great. Um,
mm,
got divorced and things like that. And so when I went down on that other path, I was like, you know what? I can't be mad at myself because that was an opportunity for me to be out there and realize my dreams and things like that. I would have been fine. Me and my daughter would have been fine, but I took that other path, and I was like, I can't be mad at myself. And I used to punish myself a lot because I didn't take that other road. And so
mm,
I'm still here, in this area. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make the best as I can. And I
mm,
started to do that. And I have two businesses. And
yeah,
there's another chapter in my life. I'm just gonna let nobody know right now. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to take advantage of it, and I'm going to do that because I don't have nothing stopping me, only myself. If I self sabotage myself, then that's on me. But
yeah,
it's like another opportunity has come by, and a lot of opportunities do not come by so many times,
no,
and you have to, with that two road poem that you did, got me thinking about that.
mm,
And but yeah, I'm definitely taking that road right there, and I'm not looking back. And and I was not made for a small town. I lived in one, raised a family in one. My kids went to school in one, but it's not for us. It's great that we have that structure of that, but really it's
mm,
not. And it's more of like me finding my own tribe. It's more of, I mean, I traveled a lot too, so that made it so much better and much easier on me also. Um, no, I was like, no, cause we can't be around here no more. It's
yeah,
great. People, that's the reason why I told my brother, the people who are here, they are perfectly for here. We have to have people like that. I said, but
definitely,
yeah, but others that feel trapped or anything else like that, I encourage them, go do the best you can, and when you
mm,
see that window of opportunity, shoot your way out. It don't matter if you're 50 or 60 or 30 or 21.
yeah,
Do it. Just
yeah,
do it and don't look back,
yeah,
you know. And I think that will come for you, like that is going to come to you
yeah,
one day down the road. It is. I know we have
yeah,
like our private conversation. That is going to come down the road. And I encourage you to just take it by the
yeah,
horns. The world is your oyster,
yeah,
and go with it. Run with it.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And I talk in the poem about uh, this man stuck between these two worlds, how he starts to see this world where he comes from as a
Hmm.
shadow realm of shadow creatures with white eyes, and these people were like his community, and now they're these terrifying creatures. He can't understand why, and like if he steps back, he goes into the shadow realm, but and it's like it's for like the shadow creatures, if you want to call people that. It's like that's not a bad life. Like they enjoy it as long as you're happy. Do
Right.
it.
Right.
as long as it's not hurting anybody and you're happy, do it. I should say.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so it's like they're happy, but like you're not happy because from your viewpoint, this call of the creating side got so strong that the basing side became a shadow realm of shadow creatures and demons. And
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is, like, you can either just sit down and like vibe with the demons and realize, well, it's screwed. I'm just gonna sink into this black mush. I'm gonna become a, I don't know, a licorice chocolate. And or it's a shadow realm. You can just put on a light, or you can step out. It's hard. It can be really hard to find the light button or to take the step. It can be painful even. But it's possible. Yes, because you step back into what is according to your worldview, the shadow realm, doesn't mean you can't step out of it or light it up.
Right. And then if you look at it from like that point of view, what in your poem, that the guy is not very accepting of the other people because no, yes, he doesn't fit in, but you like you said, they're happy of what they're doing, let them
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
And and you had I mean, I felt like that like, once upon a time too, but I was like, what.
Cut off. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think that's the sign from the shadow realm that we should wrap up this because it's getting late here.
I'm dead. I'm deceased on that. The shadow room says, wrap it up, B. All right.
It's
All right.
the interdimensional Velociraptor is talking to us through Bigfoot that may or might not be a symbol for a life choice in a discussion that started with Dawson's Creek.
I love how you linked all of that up. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. Well, thank you, Alice. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Yes.
much, Alice. You are a gem.
Thank
Anytime,
you.
anytime. I know we had some technical issues last week and everything, but that's okay. We got it going. And I definitely, definitely enjoyed this. And I hope you enjoyed it too.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. You know, just
Awesome.
talking and being as insane as my capabilities allow is one of the greatest thing possible. And I definitely like to talk abstract. I can prefer the normal way, but abstract is way more fun.
Abstract is very fun. It's really fun. I know people don't get it and they're like, "What are you just crazy too?" But I got it. I think that's the reason why. It's just your abstract talking, you're speaking. I
Yeah,
picked it up. I picked it up. I was like, oh, up, up. I want to speak like that too. But thank you so much, Ellis. Appreciate it so much. You are, like I said, you're a gem.
thank you.
I look forward to doing some more collabs with you in the future. You're my boy, Blue. You my boy. And but again, the shadow room is saying peace
Yes.
out and everything. But thank you so much, and everybody, y'all have a good night, and
Yeah.
thank you for joining the Random Horror Show.
Bye.
Bye.
The ghost of James Cameron will